Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. So we're in the F5 Tiger and this is our beloved F5 Tiger. I absolutely love it. Hardly ever get to fly it nowadays because missions demand bigger planes and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get on with this tutorial, which is the Tacan. Well, in fact, it's first prudent to point out there are two navigation systems in the F5. There is this here, the ADF, which is automatic direction finder. That works by, if I go to F10 menu here, zoom out, this allows you to navigate to non-directional beacons. So if we looked on the F10 menu, you can see where I'm hovering there, where I'm hovering there, where I'm hovering there. These are different beacons we can navigate to, and you can see they've all got separate frequencies. So that's that. Now we're not looking at the ADF today, we're looking at the Tacan. So what's the Tacan? It's a system that allows us to navigate to anywhere where there is a Tacan station. So, for instance, if, well, they will basically be at various airfields. Not all of the airfields have Tacan, just some of them. And so we have to be close to Batumi here. So I'm going to click on Batumi. And you can see we get this airdrome data here, and under the Tacan we can see whether it's got Tacan or not. So if it didn't have a code there, it wouldn't have Tacan, but this does have a Tacan station. And its code is 16 X-ray, so that's what we're going to tune into the Tacan. And we're going to use it to find this airbase. Okay, if we go back to the cockpit, you can see that there is complete cloud cover, so there's no way of finding this airbase apart from essentially using our Tacan. Okay, so let's get started. This is the Tacan system here. This is where we're going to program it in, and this is our HSI, our horizontal situation indicator here. This is going to how the Tacan is going to present itself to us and how we're going to use the data. Okay, so first thing, let's go and program it in. So we look down here. Let me just get myself level so we didn't stall or do something silly. Okay, first knob here, I can use my scrolly mouse wheel to scroll up and down, and that controls the tens of units. That's the one. This one controls the single units, and we want that as 6. I'm using the mouse wheel again, and this outer ring around the knob here, we can left click and right click to change between X-ray and Yankee, which are the two letters that you can have at the end there. Okay, this is a volume knob to turn up or down, which actually listens to the Morse code of the Tacan if you're into that kind of thing. And this here, I'm going to pause quickly, is the actual selector master mode. So we can have it off, we can have it receive only, we can have it transmit and receive, we can have it air-to-air receive only, or air-to-air transmit and receive. So off is off, obviously. Receive means that we can find a ground-based Tacan, but we can only receive heading information, not distance information, because our plane is not going to be transmitting, so it can't really handshake with the ground-based station. TR transmit receive is what we're going to be using. That's to find a ground-based Tacan system, and we can transmit, and that allows us to find a heading and a distance as well, because we are going to handshake with transmit and handshake with that ground-based Tacan station. Air-to-air and receive and transmit receive are basically the same again, except these are for airborne Tacan stations, and you do have airborne Tacan stations. You can have them in for instance, an air-to-air refueler might have one, a Tacan station that we can tune into. Also, aircraft carriers tend to have Tacan stations to tune into. Okay, so today we're going for a ground station. We want transmit receive, so let's turn that on. And now it may take a few seconds to connect, and you can hear that beeping. That is the Morse code being received and transmitted for the Tacan station. And when it's done its handshake and it's ready, then we're going to start getting information on the HSI. It may take a few seconds, so just stand by. And there it is. You saw that. It's handshake with the system in Batumi over there somewhere, and we've got information. So let's go and have a quick look. So the first thing is this main pointer here is going to be our Tacan heading, desired heading. Okay, so it's telling us that the Tacan station is where that is, which is that's 090 100. So it's about 115, no, about 110, I think that's telling us to go. So what we want to do is turn right so that this arrow comes up to here, which is where our aircraft is heading, and this is essentially the picture of our aircraft here. Okay, so with that information we can drive ourselves to the airport. Okay, we can get ourselves to the airport, but there's something of more interest that we can do, and that is to set a course line. So as well as heading to the airport, we want more than that. We want to get on the glide slope for this airfield. Okay, so that means we want to get on an actual heading just trying to get that there. So not only do we want to get to the airport, we also want to get somewhere on this line, okay? Because we want to come in so that when we come through the clouds, we are on a glide slope for the runway. Otherwise, if we came from, say, down here and just used the heading marker to between me, we would come in at an angle like that, which would be useless, okay? So this is where we can set a course. And what we're going to do is find out the course of this runway, okay? So I'm going to draw a line for this particular, I don't know it off by heart, so I'm just going to draw this line, and you can see at the top of the screen it's saying it's 126 degrees. So we're going to go back to our aircraft. So what we can do is type stand by, unpause. We can scroll this course setting here and get 126. And hold. So that has set a course line for the runway, and the course line is represented by this arrow here and this deviation line here, which we'll go through in a second. But before we do that, there's something we've got to take into account. Now, when we use the map like that, that was a true, what we call a true heading that we got there. Back in the cockpit here, this HSI works on not on true headings but on magnetic headings, okay? There's a difference there, and it's a difference of 6 degrees, okay, in this case. So what we're actually going to do is change that from 126 to 120 so that it marries up with that 126 degrees on the map. So let me adjust that. So that magnetic course of 120 is going to match with the true course of 126 of the runway. I hope that makes sense. Next, and before I go any further, there's a couple of things I just want to point out. First of all, because we've got transmit receive on the Tacan, we've got our distance from the airbase here, which is going to be very useful in these clouds, so we can judge our glide slope and elevation accordingly. It's telling us we're 16 miles out from the airbase. Okay, now let's look at this course line. What we want here is this course line here, which is currently slightly off from the heading of the airfield. We want it to marry up with that heading there. So we want this course line, which is the runway course line, to marry up with that heading of where the airfield is from us now. I'm going to do that by, essentially flying it so this arrow matches that arrow. To help us out, we've got a little thing here called a deviation line. I call it a chase line. The reason I call it a chase line is because you have to essentially chase it, okay? And this is going to get these two arrows to line up. So currently it's off to the left of our desired course line, okay? It could be off to the right, but because it's off the left, it's asking us to chase it left. It's saying go left. And if we go left, eventually this chase line is going to merge into the center here, and we want to keep it here. If we can keep it here, then essentially these two are going to marry up, and we're going to get on the right heading for the airbase and the right course for the runway. So that's what we're going to do, okay? One more thing to point out, we do have an arrow here as well. It's in a bit of a funny place, but I believe it tells us whether we're heading towards our desired Tacan station at Batumi, and it could also be over here, which would mean we're heading away. Again, if we've got no other way of navigating, if we didn't have the mountains, for instance, and it was pure whiteout, we would need that to know whether we're heading towards or away. Okay, right, so let's start to fly this. I'm going to unpause now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to chase that deviation line to the left. So I'm actually going to head left, which is counterintuitive to where this Tacan marker is telling us to get to the airbase. But that's what we're going to have to do to marry the course line up to the heading line. So stand by. Chasing, chasing, chasing. A little bit rusty in this plane, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to look around where my flaps and everything are. So that's where that is. Gear is there, okay. Almost there, and now we're going to start to turn right, and we're going to merge that deviation line right in the center of the course, and we've got it there. So now we want to turn our right so that we get both the course and the heading line on our 12 o'clock, which is there. And you can see we've overshot slightly on the course line. You see how now the chase line is slightly to the right. That means we want to deviate ever so slightly right and chase that chase line to the right. Meanwhile, we're going to watch our speed and all the other things we have to do. So we're chasing it just right of the airfield heading now. And you see it's merging into the center now. Still getting the Morse code so we can you can hear, so we're just checking that the systems are working. And we've merged on the center right there. That's pretty dang good. So now we're going to turn left again to get the course line and the heading line matched with our 12 o'clock, which we've got there. Now that's pretty sweet, okay? Right, so we've got that now all lined up, which is good. Now we're going to start thinking about our elevation. Now, at this point, it would be lovely if we had a system called ILS, which some planes do, which allows us to find the glide slope perfectly, and it does all of this, what we've been doing, but also does our elevation for us. We don't have ILS in this plane, so we're going to have to do it by instincts. So what we can do is look how many miles we're out. We know that the glide slope for this airbase is 3 degrees descent, and we can work out roughly then what our altitude should be here from how many miles. Now I can't do that maths in my head, so I'm not clever enough, so I'm going to do it kind of by instinct to start heading down. So we're at 3,000 feet at the moment, which is obviously way too high, so we're going to start heading down now. Don't want to get too much speed because this plane doesn't like to slow down. And now we're in full whiteout, so we're completely dependent on our instruments right now. Course line is still pretty good. I'm pretty happy with all of that. Heading line is ever so slightly to the right. Now, because we don't know our attitude now, we've got completely reliant on our artificial horizon here to know if we're banking left or right. So let's bank a left a little bit. We're now at 1,500 feet, so we're going to start to neutralize that. Okay, heading, of course, are pretty good. I'm keeping an eye on that now to know my attitude. 1,000 feet. So we're going to start to level out now because... the cloud's not as low as I thought. So I tell you what, to make it a little bit harder for ourselves, we're going to go back up into the clouds just to prove that the system does work. Up. There we go. So we're going to pretend that we're whiting out all the way till a mile or so, or a couple of miles. Now we've gone off course, you can see. We've gone off heading, sorry, so we need to use our ADI artificial horizon. That's annoying. That's good. Well, that's about as good as I dare, close as I dare go. But you can see from that, if we pause that there, that's got us all the way to the airfield and got us on a perfect course for landing. You can see that it's saying now the chase line's left slightly. That's saying pull left slightly, and that will get us perfectly in line with that landing. Okay, perfectly in line with that runway. So let's chase that left. Let's ignore what we can see out of the windscreen, and let's go purely on our instruments. So let's chase it left. Okay, going a little bit slow now. We can bring our gear down now. Flaps, I believe, are going to come on automatically. We're a little bit low on the glide slope now. Well, you can see that the course line wants me to turn left ever so slightly, and that's probably because my calculation or measurement was about 1 degree off. So it's ever so slightly wrong there. But for the example, I think it was near enough. And why don't we just put her down? And we have a touchdown. Okay, that was okay. You see, it wasn't perfect. At the very end there, with the last kind of few hundred feet, you could see that it's starting to deviate us off slightly. Let me get my parachute out before I run out of runway. But that's, like I said, probably I made a slight mistake in measuring it or working out the magnetic. But essentially, that was almost bang on. Right, that's Tacan, and that's how I'd use it for a bad weather landing. You can use it for just general navigation. You don't have to use it for landing. I hope that helps, and I see you later.